Good afternoon, I'm Abe.
And I'm Frank. And today, we're adumbrating the first part of Chapter 22, The Ordeal of Reconstruction, in Kennedy, Cohen, and Bailey's The American Pageant textbook. Abe, take it away.
Alright, so all rebel leaders, including Jefferson Davis, were pardoned by President Johnson in 1868. However, the economy and the social structure of the South were both in shambles. First, cities such as Charleston and Richmond were reduced to heaps of rubble. Second, businesses and banks had closed down, factories had stopped production, and railroads had been destroyed. And third, cotton fields were riddled with weeds, and the planter aristocrats had lost more than $2 billion on slave investments as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation. And most Southerners were still very defiant, cursing the damn Yankees and viewing the unsuccessful Civil War as just. But Frank, how did freedmen respond to the new freedoms given to them?
Well, as soon as the Union troops began to withdraw, whites began reimposing pseudo-slavery, stating that the Emancipation Proclamation didn't apply until upheld in local courts. Slave responses to freedoms varied, with some instantly leaving and others even choosing to stay on their plantation. However, the law was the law, and slowly but surely slavery ceased to exist and hundreds of thousands of blacks left for a new life. Black churches and religious involvement grew extremely quickly, as did the beginnings of education provided by the American Missionary Association and the new job prospects which were sprouting at this time as well. But Abe, can you tell me, what organizations served to protect the rights of the black?
Alright. Oliver O. Howard established the Friedmans Bureau in 1865 as a primitive welfare agency to provide food, clothing, and education to both freedmen and white refugees. The greatest success of the Bureau was in education, but in other areas, the Bureau was much less successful. Little land was given to blacks, and local administrators would collaborate with planters to expel blacks from towns and push them to sign labor contracts to work for their past masters. President Johnson, a white supremacist, eventually pushed the Bureau to its expiration in 1872. But Frank, could you tell me more about Johnson's presidency?
Absolutely. So Andrew Johnson had originally become vice president to help rein in the border states, since he was a native of Tennessee. Therefore, however, as president, it would be his job to bring the nation back together. And with his short temper and love of states' rights, this would be extremely difficult. In short, Kennedy explains that he was the wrong man in the wrong place at the wrong time. Abe, can you tell us about Reconstruction?
Yes, Abe Lincoln believed that the South had never legally seceded, so he passed his 10% Reconstruction Plan in 1863, which allowed a state to re-enter the Union when 10% of its voters had pledged allegiance to the U.S. and promised to abide by emancipation. Republicans feared re-enslavement of blacks and restoration of planter aristocracy from Lincoln's plan, so they passed the more radical Wade-Davis bill, requiring 50% of state voters to take the allegiance oath. Lincoln confidently vetoed the Wade-Davis bill, however. This controversy revealed that many congressmen believed that the seceders truly did leave the Union. Furthermore, two Republican factions began to emerge. First, the Republican group concurred with Lincoln's motives to restore the seceded states to the Union. And second, the radical group wanted 1. Southern's social structure to be uprooted, 2. The planter aristocrats to be punished, and 3. The emancipated blacks to be protected by federal law before readmission into the Union. President Johnson agreed with Lincoln that the South had never legally seceded, but he issued his own Reconstruction Plan that 1. Disenfranchised some wealthy Confederates, and 2. Required state conventions to repeal edicts of secession, and to ratify the 13th Amendment and repudiate all Confederate debts. But Frank, did the South regard the blacks as lawful citizens?
Unfortunately, they did not. Desperate to hobble the rights of the blacks, the South began to pass black codes, or laws designed to keep blacks working under labor contracts. Basically, blacks were made to sign contracts stating they would work the same land for a year, and if they left, they would be fined or forcibly returned. Sounds a lot like slavery, huh? The codes were preventing blacks from being able to serve on juries or from owning land in some areas. And the black codes brought about a form of legal slavery and set a precedent for the long struggle for equality yet to come. Abe, how did this system of Reconstruction affect Congress?
All right. Many of the Confederate leaders now attempted to gain back their government positions in Congress. And these whitewashed rebels, who were mostly Democrats, infuriated the Republicans. While the South was in secession, the Republicans were able to pass an abundance of legislation that favored the North, such as the Morrill Tariff, the Homestead Act, and the Pacific Railroad Act, which funded the construction of a Union Pacific transcontinental railroad. The Republicans also realized that the South would now possess much more political influence, since the blacks no longer counted as 3/5 of a person for congressional representation. Lastly, Republicans feared that Southerners could join with the Northern Democrats to seize control of Congress. This would allow the Southerners to perpetuate the hated black codes and destroy the Republican economic program. But Frank, how did Johnson clash with Congress?
Well, in 1866, Johnson vetoed a bill that would have extended the life of the Friedmans Bureau, and then he vetoed the Civil Rights Bill. In response, Congress overruled the veto through a 2/3 majority. Seeking to cement these gains, the Republicans created the 14th Amendment, which first, gave citizenship and other civil rights to blacks. Second, slashed the electoral power of states which denied blacks the vote. Third, made it so Confederate politicians couldn't hold office. And fourth and finally, guaranteed the payoff of federal debt while repudiating the debt of the Confederacy. Johnson, in disgust, advised the South against passage. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe.
And comment down below if you have any questions.
And we'll catch you guys next time.